Good morning, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. This is William H. Murray with the InfraGard Editorial on Generality and Flexibility versus Security. Take it away, Bill. Go ahead.
Good morning. 40 years ago, when I was working on my masterwork, the Access Control Facility for IBM's Advanced Administrative System, I had the opportunity to brief it to Dr. Willis Ware, one of the true pioneers of our field. The AAS was an application-only system for processing business transactions from branch offices. It could process hundreds of well-formed transaction types for thousands of users. The operating system, database, file system, and network were all hidden from the user. Said another way, it was a capability-based system. The list-based access control system identified and authenticated users and enabled their managers to specify which of the set of purpose-built capabilities they could use. Not only was it a closed system, there were no programmers and no programming capability. For example, there were no program editors, compilers, or linkage editors on the system. All development was done in a separate environment, and only checked out programs were transferred to the operating environment. Even in retrospect, it was an innovative system, and my colleagues and I were justly proud of it. However, at the end of my presentation, having admitted that it would work as intended, Dr. Ware dismissed it by saying, "It does not solve the general problem." When I asked for an example of the general problem, he offered the big DoD system acquisition of the day, the Worldwide Military Command and Control System known as WMICS, in which an NCO might both write and execute an arbitrary program of his own choice. Now, having given that problem some thought, I could not imagine a reliable command and control system in which users were writing and executing their own programs. It was to be 20 years until Dr. Ware had recognized me as a colleague and we were able to discuss this fundamental security dilemma. How to and how much to limit the generality and flexibility of the general purpose computer in such a way as to be able to do necessary work and still make useful and demonstrable statements about security. In 1974, David Bell and Leonard LaPadula gave us one model. It worked well if one was trying to prevent data leakage, but was less applicable if one were trying to resist fraud. It was less applicable if one was trying to resist system contamination. While it was implicit, their model assumed a closed system, at least for the high levels of reliability and demonstrability. A decade later, the Davids, Clark and Wilson, gave us another abstraction that included, described, and legitimized the choices that we had made in AAS. It also included the design of the AS400. Again, in both cases, there was an implicit assumption of a closed system. A decade later, I attended a presentation at the IBM Research Center by Fred Cohen, the academic father of the virus. Fred noted that the virus relies in part on the ability of the user to execute arbitrary programs. He asserted that in a world of application-only computers, we would enjoy most, but not all, of the benefits of the general-purpose computer. While stopping short of recommending it, Fred asserted that a virus would be unlikely to succeed in an environment made up only of application-only systems. On the other hand, the generality and flexibility, specifically programming, is so valuable that even if we were successful in stamping it all out, someone would simply reinvent it. The market has clearly favored open, general, and flexible systems, even with poor security. Most users enjoy far more generality and flexibility than they ever use. This generality and flexibility is exploited by others to compromise their systems their privacy, their identities, and their credit. Apple has recently offered a new alternative, a closed system in which the operating system, the database, the file system, and the networks are concealed beneath hundreds of thousands of purpose-built applications available only from Apple. Based upon this discussion, I'm sure that you recognize that I kind of favor this model. While most users are happy with it, both the functionality and the security of the system implementing this model have been criticized by geeks. Interestingly, all of the things that are hidden from the user on the device are available to run as services in the robust application systems. Applications, databases, file systems are all available. While these services are relatively open as to users, they are closed as to content. Thus, they are more resistant to contamination and leakage than they would be on popular multi-user, multi-application operating systems. Apple continues to Apple continues to loosen ways in which these constraints are applied to make the system more open. Recently, they opened multitasking. Other facilities may be opened in the future. Steve has responded to criticism of this model by suggesting that those who want a more open system should buy Macs. To those who do not like the process of the policies of the application store, Steve has suggested that they should buy a Droid. To those who want external storage, Steve has said, use the internet. So far, so good. Our children are literally cutting their teeth on systems with no wires, no keyboards, no mouse. In a decade, most internet users will have never owned a computer that they couldn't put in their pockets. Indeed, never trust a computer that you cannot carry and prefer those that you can put in your pockets. I'm afraid that many security professionals still see the rapid movement to user-owned and handheld computers as a problem rather than as an opportunity. Too many still see any change as increasing risk rather than recognizing the opportunity that comes with it to reduce risk. All this said, in the name of openness to applications and backward compatibility, by default, our two most popular operating systems reserve so much generality and flexibility to their users that they make their users and their users' neighbors vulnerable to contamination. Most enterprises still permit most of this generality and flexibility to all of their users without ever making a decision or a policy about whether or not they really have to have it. And this makes the enterprises more vulnerable than they need to be. It's up to us as the security professionals to ensure that policies are in place that reserve most of the generality and flexibility from the users unless they absolutely can demonstrate a requirement for it. Figuring out how to exploit the opportunity and to adopt the policy is not going to be easy. And that is why we are called professionals and are paid the big bucks. Next week, I'll come to you from RSA in sunny California. I hope the weather holds out. See you next week.
Thanks, Bill. See you next week. Safe flight.
Thank you.